Okay, hello DJ, and welcome along to one of my lockdown sessions. Little short videos just to help people get through lockdown number 3. I lose track now. We've covered a few topics so far. We've got some good topics coming up, but I particularly wanted to speak to you, as we said, about helping kids to develop their computer coding skills whilst working from home. So I'm Tim Guest from Consulting 51. This is a good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, not in terms of age, DJ, but time we've known each other from Manchester and from the SAP world. So DJ, do you want to tell a bit more about yourself?
Yes, I think we're allowed to say we're old as well as old friends.
Yeah.
That's all good. So yeah, I'm DJ Adams. I work for SAP. And there I work as a developer advocate, sort of like, advocating for developers on sort of both sides of the fence in the SAP enterprise development world. And I also have been involved in various initiatives, helping kids learn to code.
Okay, and your coding and development background goes back a long way, doesn't it?
It does. In fact, I just published a blog post last week about that. I was very, very lucky at school. Back in the 70s, we actually had a mini computer, which is quite a large computer, strangely enough, given the name. And we could go in there, and there were these terminals. It's like, what's all this? And there were manuals there. You could teach yourself the basic plus language, which was available, and also the operating system itself, which ran on the machine. And I was 11, and I was bitten by the bug, and it's never left me. And I started learning then, and I'm still learning now.
Excellent. Well, I remember when we used to do our Google technology user groups up in Manchester, where we always used to have decent beer afterwards. You made a comment, I believe it was in one of your TED Talks as well, that we need to be a nation of builders rather than a nation of users. So my sort of, not concern, but what I sort of think about at the moment is, schools are fantastic at the moment. They're offering a lot of good courses. We're in a period of prolonged homeschooling. So what are your sort of tips on how parents can continue their youngsters' development programs?
Well, you're right, and I do feel strongly about the fact that we should be helping our, the future generation, our kids, to become people who create stuff rather than just consume stuff, right? Particularly in this lockdown period, I was thinking about what we were going to be talking about, and I was thinking about the fact that actually the homeschooling and the online lessons, my nephew's just down the road, they're doing online lessons right now. That might be different, it might be a bit more difficult, I can't say firsthand, but what it is doing is enabling kids to become more au fait with the technologies, right? With a keyboard, mouse, screen, the general environment, which they might have not used as much during sort of normal schooling context. So, in a way, the scene is set for all sorts of different learning opportunities. Now, just to be clear, I mean, in the past, and also in the future, in the past I was involved in a number of sort of, physical event-based learning opportunities for kids. There's this Code Club, which is like a primary school age thing.
Remember that.
There's Code Dojo, lots of different things around the country. Send your kids to, it's fantastic, and so on. But, if we're talking online, there's a number of opportunities online too. There's a ton of things similar to Code Academy. There's Code Academy, there's the Khan Academy, lots of beginner programmer courses available for free. That some are just for fun, some have sort of tests at the end and exercises and so on. Some you don't need to sign up for an account for, others you do, but it's just so you can keep score of where you've got in the. Okay.
And they're designed for the younger generation, are they then? Yeah,
some aren't, but some are. Although even the ones that aren't, aren't particularly designed with the younger generation not in mind. It's maybe some of the topics may be a little bit more advanced, or it might be that the context might be a little bit less interesting for the younger generation. Maybe some sort of business context.
Okay.
But one of the things that I did during lockdown number, I don't know, 2, 1.5,
yeah.
I don't know, last spring anyway.
Yeah.
I ran a series of online YouTube live streams called Code at Home.
I remember those. Yeah.
And that went down, well, it seemed from the feedback, went down really well, in that it was a really gentle introduction to programming. And one of the questions I get the most from parents about, okay, I want to help my child learn to code is, what language? And to be honest, it doesn't really matter what language it is. Okay, pick any language, basic, JavaScript, Python, Perl, Go, anything really. I think the key thing is that they learn to think computationally, right? Rather than learn a particular language for the sake of that language. Of course, you do need a language to get going with. And so the Code at Home series, I think I did 20 episodes altogether, and they're all still online, available on YouTube. We use JavaScript to solve little problems.
Okay, yeah, and that was going to be one of my next questions. Really, was it's all well and good for people who have an idea about coding and how things work, even a basic overview. But what about if you're a parent that has never done this before and doesn't have any idea? How would you get started helping your children to learn something you have no idea about yourself?
To be honest, if you can point them in the direction that you want them to go, then I'm sure that most, if not all, will be capable enough of setting themselves off. And this is why things like Code Academy are great, because it guides the learner through every single stage. You can sort of let go, and they can just get on with it. In a similar sort of way, you can point them to a series of online YouTube videos like the Code at Home or similar, and they, more often than not, will know more about how to navigate YouTube, how to create their own playlists, how to sort of schedule their own time. And maybe also, depending on how old they are, how to chat to each other and share tips and tricks and everything across different chat systems and so on.
It's amazing how adaptable the younger generation are. I was mentoring a couple of my school-age children. Said children, they were 16. But I was talking to them about the lockdown work from home. I said, I bet you're missing all your friends mainly, aren't you? And they're like, no, because we all talk online anyway when we're out, and now we just carry on. It's like, oh, okay.
Funnily enough, my sister came round to drop something off, and she was just telling me that her son, one of her sons, was supposed to be was doing his school work, his school homework online. Yeah. But on another window, on another screen, he was chatting with his school friends. And to you and me, Tim, that's, if you go to a conference, if you're watching, some sort of webinar or a lecture, we're also talking on some sort of chat channel, the so-called the back channel. So that definitely is a thing, and I think it's a thing as much for the younger generation as it is for us. And I think we have to embrace that rather than try and resist it a little bit. Yeah,
the person I was speaking to before you, I think, was an employee engagement specialist. We were talking about team communication when you're working remotely, and if you're a close-knit team, how do you keep that, constant communication, the bit of the banter as well. And what he suggested was that when you're doing your daily work, just have Zoom or Skype or Teams or something just open, but just minimise, so you can all hear each other and talk to each other as if you were around the desk. And I suppose that's what the children are doing with the Google Chat or whatever else.
Yeah. I think that works in a work environment. I think that works for some people. It wouldn't work for me.
No, it wouldn't work for me. No.
But I know of groups that do that. And they'll have a screen as well showing what's on the remote side. Showing the picture of the office and so on if it's two remote offices connected. However, just talking from a work perspective for a second, the key thing that we need to embrace, and many of my colleagues have done a long time ago, because we all work remotely anyway, is asynchronicity. Yeah. You can't achieve the same level of spontaneity and synchronicity that you get in an office if you're not all in the same physical. Deal with it, and the way to deal with it is actually to think of things asynchronously. So I'll send you a message and not expect to reply back until you see it, and then you reply back and so on. But we do also have every week a water cooler, quote unquote water cooler sort of meeting where we just chat about anything.
Yeah,
and that's the only synchronous thing we have.
Okay.
And that works really well.
Yeah. Last question, just on sort of how to get the children into it. So if I've got a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, they've done very basic things at school. How would I get them interested enough to actually want to sit down and start doing something like this?
So the first thing is that from experience, what I found with not so much 5-year-olds, but 8, 9, and 10-year-olds is something that's visual. And something that's a bit of fun, and Scratch fits perfectly into that sort of category. A lot of people know already about Scratch. If you don't, it's basically a one-stop shop, single window environment where you can drag sprites and get them to move around, and get them to give them behaviour and get them to interact with each other, and it's a lot of fun. And that's originally when Code Club first came about. All the material, all the content which was aimed at primary school aged children was based upon Scratch, and it's a fantastic environment. You can't go wrong. So actually, going back to your other question about if you've got no idea as a parent, how do you get your kids going? Get them going with Scratch, and it's indestructible. It's not as if they'll get an error message that you have to then sort out. No, it's fantastic, and it'll run on a Raspberry Pi. So 30 quid, connect it to an old monitor, keyboard and screen, you're done.
Yeah, sounds good. Lots of good tips there, DJ. I think that's kind of sort of drawing to the close of our sort of bite-sized amount, and I think it's really useful. And certainly, I'm going to try some of those with my children as well. So, DJ, thank you very much for your time, man. I'll speak to you again soon.
You're welcome to.